In the previous lesson, we saw how we can start to use the PBR materials or physically based render materials in Rhino, using also cycles as a rendering. So by choosing ray traced, meaning that it's going to be like a more advanced and also heavy render. So it's going to have better and more accurate direct and indirect illumination. So we start to play around also with the emissive material, and also how we started to define some really basic textures. We saw how we can work with maps and channels in the materials to get some effects. So we're gonna go more into deep in this video. So this time I'm gonna go into another setting. I'm gonna go into an interior, and so we don't need the environment this time. Usually when you are in exteriors or like single products like cars, you can use the environment. Otherwise, in an interior, the environment is the interior itself. So I developed this scene here using Enscape, and I definitely suggest the use of like lighter. It's pretty heavy, the rendering here in Rhino, using Rhino render and cycles. So you need to have a strong computer, or perhaps you can use something more optimized like Enscape or Twinmotion or others. So I put here some models which now look as proxies from Enscape. I'm gonna go here in the interior, and I'm gonna go into this area of the kitchen just to do a couple of examples of how we can construct a material using the textures. So I created the material right there in the kitchen area using textures from the web. And first of all, there are different types of textures. Tileable textures, or texture you can place just once, like images, or you can simulate emissive panels or TVs, etc., etc. And then you have like more complex mapping for objects, like this furniture here that we got from Polyoven. So you need to distinguish various types of materials, of textures, and mapping. In this case, we need to define the mapping. So I'm just going to get rid of this, and I'm going to create a new standard material. So I'm going to go into properties of the object, and in the material here, I'm gonna just use a default material, so we can start from scratch. So we either choose a base material from here, so like a glass or metal or whatever, paint, or we get more types in the libraries, or we get into these presets here. These are more libraries that you can use. And just here, you just need to click drag and drop, or right click, assign to the object. You can import it to the material editor and use it from there, or you can assign to the ground plane, which is part of the render. Now these are the tabs for the render, and you will soon understand that rendering, material, and lighting, they come all together, so you need to consider them all when you do a render. So here you have resolution, then you have the background, so if you use 360 environments or not, and then you have ground plane. So in this case, we don't need a ground plane. Ground plane is when you don't have anything on your ground, any pavement, so perhaps you're using a single object. Lighting, the sun, also we don't really need it now, but it can be used for interiors, so we're gonna see that later. And again, there is an entire Rhino video course with this explained, just using a different render engine, but essentially the tools are the same. What changes is the render engine, but everything else is like the same that you have in Rhino and that you had in Rhino before. And down here, if we go all the way down, this is the Rhino render advanced settings, and we're gonna get into that. So let's start with a search on the web. First of all, this is the material that I'm using, and it's found in Polyoven. So when you get into Polyoven, you have three sections. You have models, and these they all contain Unwrap texture. So really specific texture that cannot be tiled, cannot be repeated. And then you have textures for creating materials, and then you have HDRIs for 360 environments, and we're gonna get to that later on. So let's go into textures, and here you have categories, so you can look for terrains or floors or bricks, wood, and whatever. So let's go now into floor. This is the one we're looking for to put a floor on our kitchen, and then you can scroll down here and look all of them. You can see there are so many, or you can just like select one of these material, or you know, go in the outdoor or indoor, etc., etc. So once you get the texture, let me just go back to the one that I found, which is this one here. Okay, it's called Cartago. It's in the tiles. Okay, and that's the author here, and you can donate, you can support here the site. Here we have a preview of how it's going to look like, and this is a normal effect, like a bump or normal effect, 3D superficial. This is the diffuse. This is the normal for the 3D effects, and then we have other type of textures. This is a displacement, and this is a roughness. So you either find an entire package like this and you download it, or you need to create like the material using different textures. But the more texture you have, the more maps you have, the more channels you use of your material, the better it will be, the more realistic. So here we can get them all. So we can say the resolution, and if it's not a really big surface, there's no need to go like 16K or 8K. Well, you can just go 1K or 2K. You can download it as a Blender file, as a GLTF that you can import in RHINO, and once it's imported, you also have the material. Or you can download the single textures, which is going to be the thing we're going to do. So I'm going to select the zip, and here you can select, again, if you want also the Blender file, the GLTF model, and other formats, and down here which texture you want. So for example, I can decide if I want ambient occlusion, roughness, metalness, and diffuse or albedo texture, and also which format. Now PNGs also contains alpha channels sometimes, but not in this case, so we're gonna go with JPEG, and then displacement, normal, roughness. So you can select them all, or you can just deselect some of these. And once you're ready, you click on download. In my case, I created a polyoven folder, and here I stored some of the textures and HDRIs. And this one here is here. So gray Cartago, and if I click, I can see there's a GLTF, and there's some textures right here. So that's the most important one, the diffuse or albedo, and then we have the others. So, but if you have already a diffuse, you can generate from these normal and roughness using websites that are also shown in the channel. So you can look for like how to create a normal map, and you will find a video guide for that. But anyway, here we have everything, so we don't need to do anything more than that. But if you look for other textures on the web, you can look for them like singularly. So again, you can start with the diffuse texture. So for example, I can look for a parquet, and there are many, and then you can like generate normal from diffuse. And again, there are many ways you can do that. And also you find some videos in the channel explaining that. Or you need to download all the others. So you need a normal texture, you need the roughness. Usually the normal is like purple, roughness is black and white, also like the bump, which is similar to normal, and displacement. These are all for creating 3D superficial effects or 3D extrusion, and they are black and white. The white is the maximum of the effect, the black is the minimum, the gray is something in between. And then you have ambient occlusion, which basically represents the